Previously on
HG.
I head to Wayward Cave and catch Jan the G-Blay. She was a bit risky to catch given that she knew Dragon Rage, but it was nothing old One-Ball HG couldn't handle. And the nice thing about G-Blay is that she evolves into her final form Gabite at the remarkably low level of 24. My hope is that at this HP, Miss Magius is low enough for a single Dragon Rage to take the KO. If it's not though, Fantina will heal and we'll be screwed. Miss Magius fires off yet another Shadow Ball, and Jan manages to survive a critical hit with just 12 HP. After the Oranberry, she retaliates with her Dragon Rage, which does indeed get the KO, meaning that victory over Fantina is nigh. I simply couldn't leave her on the bench. She's been with us since the start, so I gotta take her all the way to the end. Let's see if that decision pays off. Let's see if that decision pays off.
Which of the following is considered the best ground type of all time?
Hi there, my name is... I'm sorry, I had something in my throat. My name is Garchomp FJ, and today we will be launching my very first video ever, which just so happens to be what is widely believed to be the most improbable hardcore Nuzlocke in the entire Pokemon series. A hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green with only fire types. I opt to choose Leaf Green because I'm not an idiot. Wait, was that too strong of a word? Sorry, Flygon HG, my revenge shall be sweet when you feel it, but implying you aren't intelligent because you made the wrong choice by choosing her over isn't fair to you. Perhaps we will settle our differences over a children's card game, or better yet, you'll just have to wait to find out. No, it's time for my revenge to begin with fire. And who better to start off with than the lizard salamander himself, Charmander. I soft reset until I get a defense-boosting nature, in this case Impish, plus defense minus special attack for reasons that I will explain in a moment, and I name him Godfather. If you happen to be among the very few of us that recognize the nickname theme, let me know in the comments. Though again, I will be playing Leaf Green because I am not a stinky, meanie, poopy face. I am smart. Like art, but with SMH in front of it. Smart. Start off by winning the very first of many victories against my counterpart, Flygon HG. And then I take advantage of my impish nature to better prepare against Brock and other rock and ground types by only fighting against Metapods and Kakunas in the Viridian Forest for a total of 52 defense EVs before I am at the level cap of 14. I make my way to the Pewter Gym, initiate a save state, and begin my first try against Brock. I lead off with a few Metal Claws and Geodude counters with a couple defense curls and a tackle. I hope for an attack boost, but I don't get it. Onyx comes out second and I go for a growl to reduce Rock Tomb damage, but even with 2 to 3 attack drops, I will need some luck to win this fight, as only 2 Rock Tombs from this HP will be enough to kill me. After my third Metal Claw, exactly that happens. Now on attempt 5 I get an attack boost from my first Metal Claw, but the 2 tackles from Geodude put down to about 60%, and Onyx's attacks are enough to the point where I just reset before Godfather dies. Now, as we begin our challenge, you may have already figured out that my Nuzlocks will be noticeably and yet justifiably different than other Nuzlocks. Unlike the controversial and perhaps a bit backwards rule that justifies trade evolving but then rejects trading exclusive mod types, I will allow one and only one out-of-game trade per Nuzlocke, but only after certain criteria is met. Other hardcore rules still apply, like no items in battle and so on, but one additional clause will be added to minimize brain deterioration, which is before and through fighting Misty. Save states will be allowed, but only for the Brock fight just before the battle, not during the fight, and the Misty fight, which is just before the battle starts, or only during Star Me to set up 6 smoke screens. Save states during Star U or after the 6th smoke screen will not be allowed. This is just because the amount of deaths during those fights will be so numerous that the only way to save time is to show the best possible RNG, since that's what it's going to require anyway, combined with the fact that my journey from picking up my starter until beating Misty will always look the exact same. So I torture myself the same way Flygon HG has tortured me. It's just a horrible toll on my mental health. Lastly, I will play with the After Misty clause, which means every time I wipe after Misty, I can continue from where I left off just after beating Misty for reasons I already stated. I lead with Growl this time and use Ember, hoping for a burn. I switch to Metal Claw and get the much needed attack boost. Now, my calcs tell me that with one attack boost, Metal Claw has a 50% chance to 3-shot, so here's to hoping for good RNG or another attack boost. I lead with dual Growls, and Onyx uses a Rock Tomb. 3 Metal Claws later, and I finally sink Onyx. All of this hard work leads to Godfather evolving into a monstrous Charmeleon. I minimize battles on Route 3 and take a very short detour to the Magikarp Scammer from the St. Anne for a very specific reason that will make sense later. Anyway, some of you may be wondering what my evil Grandmaster plan is, but that's a mistake only Doofenshmirtzes make, spending all of their precious time monologuing. But I promise you, I have a plan, and unlike a certain YouTuber who shall remain nameless, Flygon HG, I deliver on my promises, and nobody is left behind. Torn by his defeat at the lab, Flygon HG challenges me to a rematch with his supercharged team, but Godfather makes short work of the large pigeon and moves on to Squirtle. Godfather starts with a Mega Punch and Mega Kick while Squirtle uses Withdraw and Water Gun. I risk the 75% accurate Mega Kick and get rewarded with a hit. Abra destroys Attempt 8 with Teleport, and then I move on to Ratatat and finish him off with a Mega Punch, leveling Godfather up to 19, which unlocks the move Smokescreen. Without such move, this run would surely be impossible. I make a tactical risk by removing Mega Kick and move on to Ash's first lover, Misty, and use multiple attempts trying to figure out how to conjure a large enough fire that even water can't put out. Now, many of you who know me only know me because my eternal frenemy, eternal rival, Flygon HG, misrepresented me on his channel, only getting my voice mostly correct and nothing else. The truth is, I have been sidelined while my outdated ground dragon counterpart, that shall be left nameless, Flygon, gets to have all the spotlight while I'm sick of it. He thinks he can hog all the valuable screen time even with my increasingly frequent cameos, but that's not all. In the end, he had the choice to make, and he chose her. I will be as a thief in the night waiting for Flygon HG to slip up just once, not closing his curtains, or forget to lock his door, or even sleeping with both eyes closed instead of leaving one eye open to make sure I'm not around the corner. Wait, that's revealing too much and just sounds out of context. It can be creepy. Whatever. And then and only then will I enact my revenge. Poor Flygon. He has no idea what I know. The dark secrets from his childhood. The most embarrassing moments. Okay, I'll talk about that later. That's a little too much to talk about. Let's just say, rest assured, you have burned my soul. But like a phoenix, I shall be reborn from the ashes and begin my life anew. Get ready, Flygon, because your channel is going to be bathed in fire. Ah, yes, fire. While I'm all about not joking about starting a forest fire that can withstand the treachery of water, I'm starting the right ideas. The KOs begin to pile up in the masses before I finally use the lifeline I allotted myself for this battle and this battle only. For on attempt 27, I use save states during the battle, manipulating the RNG only for Starmie and only until landing the 6th smokescreen. 4 Mega Punches later, Starmie is done for. You won't see me coming, Flygon. I have many friends in high places. No, not because I can't fly. We don't talk about that. It's because lots of us watch your videos, Flygon, and there is a growing population of people that are saying justice for Garchomp FJ. Well, Flygon HG, you shall always remember today is the day Flygon HG almost had the last laugh, but then snatched a defeat out of the jaws of victory. Remember that Magikarp from earlier? I traded him for an out-of-game trade in Growlithe from Fire Red version, which I named Mafioso. This is my one trade allowed for this game, so in-game trades are no longer available. Also, the shortage of fire Pokemon available in this game is abysmal, plus ARK9 is a great Pokemon. Most importantly though, even with trading a Pokemon with Cut to skip the SSN portion of the game to increase the level cap, the experience gained is just too high for Charmeleon to successfully be at level 24 by getting to Lieutenant Surge, so this is the perfect time to introduce Mafioso to the team. Now I make it to the SSN and already lost to Falcon HG, so I decided to take more precautions for attempt 29, but it doesn't go well because Wartortle lands a water gun and a bubble. On attempt 30, Mafioso and Godfather again fail in their tag team efforts, but on attempt 31, Godfather lands enough smoke screens that he can survive enough hits to take down Wartortle with an Ember. For Eradicate, I switch to Mafioso to get an Intimidate off, use a couple digs, and then finish Kadabra off with a dig followed by a bite. Now that I have the HM for Cut, I just need to catch a Pokemon that can learn Cut, so Diglett makes sense. Oh, that Pokeball didn't work. Let's just deal some damage to... Oh, it fainted. Well, let's just try that again, and... oh, well that's just plain rude. In hindsight, using a Diglett for a Cutmon is kind of impractical and a risky catch anyway, so using Chadine the Farfetch'd as my Cut Flymon is a much safer path. Sadly though, this means more grinding and more prep work for the third rival fight. Attempt 31 falls flat on my face, and then I squeeze by Wartortle on attempt 32. Next up is Admiral Surge, who leads off with a fake Pokeball, and we trade a few hits. Godfather taking way more damage than I would have liked, but eventually wins out. After receiving a Thunder Wave from Pikachu, I switch off to Mafioso and get off a useless Intimidate. I attempt a dig, which fails and winds up paralyzed. Not wanting to be paralyzed for Raichu, I switch to Godfather and land a Mega Punch, which one-shots it. I then switch back to Mafioso upon Raichu's debut, which clearly turned out to be a mistake. Shockwave did way more damage to Mafioso than I thought would happen, so attempt 32 is a wipe. On attempt 33, I instead teach Dig to Godfather, noting his much higher special defense. I lead with Mafioso and use 5 Embers to take down the blasted Pokeball Imposter. When the Electric Mouse shows up, I switch to Godfather and take out Pikachu with a couple Embers, healing paralysis in between next to a held Cherry Berry. Raichu outspeeds, he hits hard with a Shockwave and then slyly goes for Double Team, while I'm underground. But Godfather is no dummy, as 2 digs are enough to take down the electrical mouse that Game Freak would rather forget ever creating. Rock Tunnel proves to be easier than I thought, which means we can access 2 more encounters, Consort the Vulpix and Blackmailer the Eevee, which I immediately evolve into a Flareon. I overcome my gambling addiction by cashing out for 2 flamethrower TMs, one of which I teach to Blackmailer since she doesn't learn it until level 52. And the other I am saving for a future encounter that doesn't even learn Flamethrower at all in Generation 3. Yeah, a fire Pokemon that doesn't learn Flamethrower. Don't you give me that sad puppy face look, you pathetic little unicorn horse. The only right thing about you was that Game Freak didn't make your fiery flames pink. With a more full team, I can now easily train Consort by taking advantage of Team Rocket's extremely weak lineup, which should be more than enough to level up. Well, crap. I'll just pretend that didn't happen and move on without Consort then. The fight against Erica is a joke, but here, go ahead and watch it since it's a milestone for moving forward in the game. Giovanni fight, I use 5 bites with Blackmailer on Onyx and Rhyhorn respectively, and when Genghis Khan enters, I throw a couple sand attacks on her and get flinched, so I take the hint and switch to Mafioso for the Intimidate. I use 3 flame wheels in hopes of a burn, but to no avail, so I switch to Godfather, who finishes the job with a few digs and a blaze boosted ember. In the mid-game, I take a gamble and attempt a shot at Coco, where I immediately waste the coughing, and after some back and forth, Blackmailer gets poisoned. So I switch to Mafioso, but he also gets poisoned. So I switch to Godfather, now with Charizard, and he gets poisoned as well. This is not my day. Unfortunately, this is where things go south. You see, with all the defense investment into Godfather and its minus special attack nature, there is no way he can successfully finish this task. And with all the hyper potions Koga still has, on top of the fact that the others are sitting Psyducks as well, that puts an abrupt end to attempt 33. Attempt 34 goes well until this dumb hiker uses Magnitude while Godfather used a dig, so that was a wipe. Attempt 5 was much better, and this time Consort didn't die, and Blackmailer is also a boy, so yeah, there's that. I level up against several rockets and evolve Consort at level 29 after naturally learning Flamethrower into a majestic Ninetales. In case you were wondering, Consort makes short work of Erica. Skipping the joke fight that Giovanni is, I head to the 4th rival fight, and because he doesn't have a Gyarados, he is relatively easy, and Godfather evolves into a Charizard. For Koga, I lead with Blackmailer and get some much better RNG luck and take out Coughing and Muck with some flamethrowers. I briefly into Consort and get off a Will-O-Wisp, and then Mafioso for the Intimidate. I send Consort back in with the Will-O-Wisp, and then finish it off with a Flamethrower. I Will-O-Wisp Wheezing and switch to Mafioso for the Intimidate, to Godfather to shake off the smoke screen, and back to Mafioso again for another Intimidate, whittling down his HP in the process. One more switch back to Godfather and a Wing Attack and 2 Hyper Potions and a few Flamethrowers later, Godfather knocks him down. I get the final badge. Which is what I would say if I was Flygon, because I'm not a quitter. For Rival 5, I lead with Blackmailer and use Flamethrower only for Flygon to switch into Blastoise. I whiff a Sand Attack and then switch to Consort and get off a Will-O-Wisp and a Confuse Ray before landing a Flamethrower. I switch to Godfather and use a Wing Attack to finish off the turtle. Godfather makes short work of Big Bird with a Flamethrower and takes down Growlithe shortly after, before Mafioso takes down a half dozen X, and Blackmailer takes down Hocus Pocus. I lead Blackmailer against Giovanni and take down Nidorino and Rhyhorn, and switch to Growlithe to get off and intimidate on Big Mama. I switch to Consort after a few exchanges and take her out, and then use a Will-O-Wisp and Confuse Ray on Nidoqueen. After a Tail Whip, I use 2 Flamethrowers, which wastes the other Mama. I lead Blackmailer against Sabrina's Kadabra and take it down with a Shadow Ball, which I acquired from the game corner after a gambling relapse. And do the same thing for Mr. Mime. Mrs. Mime? We'll just call her Mr. Mime for now. A Flamethrower handles Venomoth, and a Shadow Ball frightens Alakazam to death. Next up is Blaine. Only really a threat because he also uses fire types, which really only means whoever wins this fight is the real fire user, and the loser is the imposter. So I'll have to be extra careful if I want bragging rights. I lead Consort with a Confuse Ray and immediately switch to Mafioso to shake off and deal and intimidate. And follow with a Dig, which handles the dog. I dig for the horse, but it sets up a bounce, so of course I hilariously decide to stay in, and even more hilariously it pays off. I should not have done that, but oh well. What doesn't kill you makes you dumber. I use a Bite on the heel and then switch to Godfather and use a Wing Attack with KOs on the pony. The Fire Unicorn comes out, so Godfather goes for Dig, which one-shots. Nice. I switched to Blackmailer on a Fire Blast, which is nullified too thanks to its almost useless ability, Flash Fire. I go for a Shadow Ball and Bite, and eventually switch to Consort and use Confuse Ray. I switch to Godfather to set up the final blow with a Dig, which barely isn't enough, so one last Wing Attack finishes the job. Normally in a Nuzlocke, you wouldn't want to add multiple battles to your repertoire of already random, useless, very easy, and very mind-numbingly tedious things to do, but in this case, 2 more encounters are at stake, so I accept Bill's offer to travel the world to many different islands that don't actually exist, and they won't exist after this game. And on my ventures, I catch a Ponyta named Janitor, a Magmar named Consigliere, and just for fun, I find a very, very common and multiple and numerous and in high abundance Moltres, which by the way is not rare in this game, and in any other game might be rare, but in this game is absolutely common and absolutely a very weak and very usable Pokemon. But in any case, I catch the Moltres and I name them Ambusher. However, I'm so sorry, Ambusher, you're just a little too OP to be in this Nuzlocke. Maybe next time, though. After some serious grinding, I square off against the match of the century, Garchomp FJ versus Giovanni, leader of the Mafia in a virtual version of the Roman Colosseum. I lead with Consort, and upon doing some hidden power checking, I discovered Consort has hidden power Ice, which will definitely come in handy against Lance's Dragonite. That's enough to take down Rhyhorn number 1. When Dugtrio comes out, I could easily switch to Charizard, which is Flying type, which, if anybody had half a brain, could resist an Earthquake just because it's a Flying type. But I don't do that, because I'm on the same playing field as Flygon, and he makes a foolish mistake every once in a while, and since we're on the same playing field as him, it just makes sense to make a dumb mistake every once in a while as well. He's not necessarily stupid, he just makes a lot of misplays. I'm not necessarily stupid either, I just have really low IQ. Anyway, I switched to Mafioso, now an ARK-9, since his earlier evolution finally learned Flamethrower at level 49. Upon evolving, Mafioso learned Extreme Speed at level 49 as well. One bite and flinch and Flamethrower takes out the Diglett trio. I switched to Godfather and correctly see... Oh yeah, finally, I switched to Godfather, and I correctly see Nidoqueen's Earthquake, so I set up a Dig, which hilariously doesn't make Godfather vulnerable to Earthquake despite all logic suggesting that it should. But I'm an idiot, what do I know? Maybe it doesn't work on Flying-type Pokemon that are underground. Only Game Freak really knows. By the way, am I coming up with random stuff to talk about just so you can hear this epic, awesome Gen 3 Fire Red and Leaf Green version of the Team Rocket battle theme from Gen 2? Yes, I am. Anyway, next up is Rhyhorn number 2, so I switched to Mafioso to get off the Intimidate, and 2 bites handle it just fine. Last up is Nidoking, and I use a Flamethrower, completely forgetting Mafioso is still weak against ground-type moves. Whoops. Despite that, I foolishly risk Poison Point with an extreme speed, not realizing Giovanni had another healing item on hand and uses it. Not taking any chances, I switched to Godfather and finished the job with one final Flamethrower. That was really sloppy, but at least we made it out okay. For the 6th rival fight, Mafioso takes out Big Bird and Little Rhino, and then for Big Goomba, I switch to Godfather and use a couple digs since Turtle Man's only attacking water move is Water Gun. Water Gun in the anime has about 150 base power, but if it's in the game, it's about 40 base power. But anyway, that was super risky, but at least now that the rain has stopped, a blaze-boosted Flamethrower is enough to sink Blastus. I switched to Janitor for his debut and sink Little Doggy with a bounce. I set up the Sun and switched to Consigliere for his debut, who eats a Solar Beam and lands a nasty Flamethrower on the half-dozen eggs, and the Psycho Weirdo for the clean sweep. Finally, the Elite Four. Consigliere, Blackmailer, Consort, Janitor, Mafioso, and Godfather. One change of note is I went to Rock Tunnel to teach Godfather Rock Slide from a move tutor. As expected, Ambusher the Moltres is sitting this one out. I will be risking crits all over the place, but it's our only and best chance at winning. As such, I lead Consigliere with a Brick Break, and he eats a very nasty Surf. I get rid of the stupid Dugong, and I set up the Sun against Cloyster, as her only attacking move is Dive. I switch to Janitor, and he cleans up with a Solar Beam. Next up is Lapras, and Janitor uses Flamethrower, which would ideally two-shot if it wasn't for a Citrus Berry. Through confusion, I land another Flamethrower, and I get the bird! I survive a sun-weakened Surf and discover the burn damage isn't enough, so I switch to Consort, whose special defense is the highest of all 6 of my Mons, and in theory should survive 2 Surfs so long as none of them crit, and set up with a Confused Ray and a Will-O-Wisp. I switch to Godfather, fully expecting to see a monstrous Surf, and I'm delighted to see an Ice Beam. Godfather uses the Rock Slide, and then I switch to Blackmailer and finish off the Lapras with Burn Chip. Next up is Slowbro, and I sink her with 2 Shadow Balls. Last stop is Jinx, you owe me a subscribe button, and she immediately puts Mafioso to sleep. I'm not worried though because she isn't a threat. I just need to land one Flamethrower through all these stall moves, which I eventually do. We don't always talk about Bruno, but when we do, it's to laugh at how weak he is. I lead Consigliere against Onyx and use Psychic 3 times to reduce the boulder to the pebble. I switch to Mafioso to land an Intimidate on a counter. After 2 Flamethrowers, Machamp is next. I use an Aerial Ace followed by a Flamethrower that lands the burn. To my surprise, he withdraws Machamp and sends his second Onyx in, which I blast with a Flamethrower thanks to Onyx's horrible special defense. I use Flamethrower again just for kicks and giggles, and it falls, and shortly after so does Machamp thanks to Natural Burn Chip. I use Aerial Ace against Hitmonlee and switch to Godfather on the heal. One wing attack is enough to finish him off. Now some say that the true villain of this game was Agatha all along, but we know better than that. Flygon is the real villain. But in all seriousness, one of these Gengars probably used to be Sparky before she killed her. Consigliere and go for a Psychic, which lands the special defense drop, which makes it even nicer that she healed because one more Psychic sunk her first Sparky. I mean Gengar. One more Psychic on Golbat, and then I switch to Godfather to shake off confusion, and use Wing Attack to finish Golbat and Flamethrower to one-shot the venomous King Cobra. Godfather hits the second Gengar with a hard Flamethrower and then gets poisoned on a Sludge Bomb. I once more hit with Flamethrower and finish Haunter with a Flamethrower after she curses herself to death. This might be our most difficult fight. Against Lance, I lead with Janitor against Lance's Gyarados and set up with a Sunny Day. He shakes off a bite, and I attempt a charcoal sun-boosted flamethrower, which, like some platypuses, doesn't do much. After a Dragon Rage, I switch to Mafioso to get off and intimidate, and then to Godfather, who shakes off a bite. He whiffs a rock slide, but then hits the next two for massive damage. I switch to Mafioso to get off another Intimidate, and then to Blackmailer, who dodges a Hyper Beam. I try to flinch with Bite, which fails, and then sink the big fish with a Shadow Ball. Now Aerodactyl is going to be the absolute biggest challenge for this entire run, so I will need to work this smart to drain his Ancient Power PP so Godfather can take care of him. I first switch to Mafioso to get off and Intimidate as he eats an Ancient Power. I switch to Consigliere in hopes of Flame Body kicking in, which fails. I switch back to Mafioso to get off another Intimidate, risking a very risky crit, which I thankfully dodge, wasting his third Ancient Power PP. I switch again, and instead of seeing another Ancient Power, it's a Wing Attack. So on Consort, I set up a Will-O-Wisp while constantly risking crits all over the place. He uses his last Ancient Power, which I survive, but sadly he gets the stupid freaking Omni Boost. Unbelievable. Anyway, in any case, I use Confuse Ray for some more chip, and we may need him to botch a move or two to pull this off. I switch to Godfather and hit with a Wing Attack and finish him off with a Rock Slide. Next up is Lance's first Dragonair, which I land an Earthquake on. I use another Earthquake, which must have low rolled after the highest possible low roll because the math just isn't mathing on this one for me. Godfather heals Paralysis with a Cherry Berry that I equipped for this exact scenario, and then I finish off Dragonair with a Flamethrower. Now that I am in Blaze range, I safely get Dragonair number 2 with 2 Flamethrowers. Now Lance sends off the big boy last, so I decide to sacrifice Consigliere for a safe switch to Consort for the quad super effective Hidden Power Ice. But to my surprise, not only does Dragonite go for a Wing Attack instead of Outrage, but Consigliere survives it and activates Flame Body. Unreal! I switch to Blackmailer on a Wing Attack and try for a flinch with a Bite, only for Dragonite to use Safeguard. I go for another flinch with Bite and fails, and Dragonite uses Hyper Beam, which is fine because of the burn. Oh no, the critical hit! Well, after all of these crit risks, it was bound to happen sooner or later. Swell, Blackmailer. For reasons I still don't understand, instead of sending in Consort for the clean finisher with a Hidden Power Ice and Burn Chip and Hyper Beam Recharge, I sent in Janitor for some reason and realized the mistake after the fact. Well, since I had a free turn, I attempted a Flamethrower just to see if I could sink him, but unfortunately did not, even with the Burn Chip. I set up the Sun on the healing turn, and sadly, I will need Janitor for Blastoise in the next fight, so I make the very hard decision to sack Consigliere so I can have a safe switch into Consort. Hyper Beam works even better than Flame Body since that gives Consort a free turn to set up Will-O-Wisp and a Confuse Ray. Dragonite wastes his next turn setting up a Safeguard, and I hit him with an Hidden Power Ice. Dragonite uses Outrage, but Consort's special defense is too high to faint to that move without help from a crit, so one more HP Ice is enough to land the final blow. Down 2 Mons, this is going to be rough, but we will give it our best shot. Last up is Falcon, the imposter champion of Kanto. I lead Consort against Big Bird with a Will-O-Wisp and a Confuse Ray, eating up an Aerial Ace and Sand Attack in the process. I hit back with Hidden Power, and Big Bird hits itself in confusion. I then switch off to Janitor to hopefully get some sun prepared for the Danger Turtle in the back. Falcon full restores at the bird, and I hit with a Flamethrower to get Sand Attacked. So I switch to Mafioso to intimidate the bird and shake off the Sand Attack, and then switch to Godfather, who eats a nasty critical hit Aerial Ace. I switch back to Janitor and set up a Sunny Day. He eats his Citrus Berry much sooner than I would have preferred. Janitor KOs Rhydon immediately with a Solar Beam, and finally the showdown against the turtle begins. Hydro Pump is about a 50% range to kill Janitor in the sun from this point, so we have to either hope for a miss or a lucky roll, otherwise this entire run is over. It all comes down to this. I use a Solar Beam which deals over half, and then Blastoise sets up the rain. Resetting, I set up the sun, and finally the moment of truth is upon us. Janitor survived by the skin of his teeth! That's enough to beat Blastoise, but that was only the first hiccup. Now the real battle begins. Anything could go wrong at this point. We have to be extra careful if we want to finish this Nuzlocke for the first time ever. Next up is the Psycho Weirdo. Hocus Pocus is his name. Hocus Pocus is the game. Hopefully he doesn't do it. Let's sink him now or we can screw it. My heart is pumping. This is so intense. All gone. I mean, if only Flygon HG could see what we were doing over here. We're going places. I switched him off Yosto on a nasty psychic that lowers my special defense. The intensity here in the Colosseum is picking up so fast to over 95,000 miles per hour. I can't handle it. Where is everyone? I can't handle it. Where are you people? Now I'm fairly confident that he outspeeds, so I try to go for an extreme speed. And then the Zam knocks me out on another psychic thanks to the special trap. Oh boy, I only have Consort and Godfather as viable options left in a virtual 2v3. This is not gonna be easy. Next up, I send out my trusty Godfather who uses Earthquake after Sam sets up a future site. Godfather's Earthquake takes care of business and now I'm onto the palm tree. In the nick of time, the sun's going to fade, which means Chlorophyll is not going to activate. Suck it, Executor. You're not going first this time. I'm gonna burn you to a crisp with a flamethrower. I use flamethrower on the egg palm tree, sending the palm tree right back to Florida where he belongs. And finally, we have the showdown that we've been waiting for. The showdown of the millennium with ARK9 versus Godfather. Now this could still go way wrong with Intimidate on Godfather, but I stay in and risk all the marbles. ARK9 uses extreme speed, and Godfather tries an Earthquake in hopes of pulling off the two-shot. I can't believe it. I did it. I won. I won. I have no words. So many attempts. So many tries. And to think my first video ever was the video nobody else was going to pull off. Flygon has fallen. Look out, Nuzlockers, a new Nuzlocker has entered the chat. This video was exhilarating and such a blast. I really enjoyed every moment. But I especially enjoyed all of you who stayed until the end, for without whom my channel's existence wouldn't be possible. Expect to see more of me. This will not be a one-hit wonder. I'm here, and I'm here to stay. Consider that a personal promise from Garchomp FJ, the one and only, and never forget it. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and as always, never forget to risk playing through the critical hit.